Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on UppTalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say UppTalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you are new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
For today, we will see flow control. If flow control is about parallel processing, where you know you want to improve the performance of your process and you want it to execute quickly. Usually, if it's taking 1 hour, you want to bring down the runtime to like 30 minutes, 40 minutes or under, like 30 minutes. You enable parallel processing using flow control shape. Now, by default in Boomi Cloud, only there are two types of parallel processing, threads and process. By default in cloud, only threads is allowed. Basically, when you process, let me write it down. Essentially, if you look at this diagram, you have your source system. You got the request. You enable parallel processing using flow control shape. You have your data transformation. This is your target system. Once you enable flow control, you will be able to have multiple requests happening in parallel essentially. And then you're sending back the response of it. That is the core logic of it. Now there are two options for it. Flow control, there are two things. First is processing, the second is threads. Parallel processing occurs on JV memes. This happens on threads. JVM is essentially for each execution, a new JVM would be spanned up. Do you guys know the basic hardware and all about like your CPU? And about JVM's heap memory, all that threads. I know about that. I'll just give up some basic information. Your Atom in Boomi is essentially a CPU, which has your score, processor, RAM, everything. Now we are using Cloud, Atom Cloud. There is no actual hardware for you to look into. It's just all virtual memory. Essentially, if you look at it, any cloud service, any cloud server you go for, in this to run all these processes and everything JVMs are spin up. JVMs is your Java virtual machine. Basically, an instance is a spin up in where your process will be executed. Does this make sense? Now, usually when you're executing a process, it is running inside a JVM. For flow control in parallel processing, it uses JVMs directly. Basically, for your each execution, a new JVM will be spin up. But whereas in threads inside, a JVM, it will have multiple threads. Now, when you use threaded execution, it uses the threads under same JVM. Let's say you got 10 documents. You enabled flow control on it. If you do it with parallel processing and split it, 5 documents each. 5 docs at one another, 5 docs at 2. What it will do is, let's add a branch to help understand. This is just for graphical representation. I'm doing not actual branch. Let's insert here only. This is your process. It starts here. This is the flow control shape in your process. Once it begins, for now you're looking into parallel processing. You got 5 documents here. Another 5 documents here. What it will do is it will create a replica of this process. Any further, whatever shapes you have in your whole integration, it will create the exact same replica in another JVM and Java virtual machine and run your process parallelly. That both of them gets executed in their own time. Rishi, we are going to split that document according to some logic or something. Yes, there, you can select how you want to split them. But then again, remember, parallel processing only works in private atom clouds and molecules, not in Boomi public cloud, which you would be using if I'm correct. In your threads, you have 5. This runs on inside the same JVM. In a separate thread, this will have parallel execution. Does this picture clear it now? It's been up another same replica of your instance. This process, basically whatever you know, after this flow control you have all these shapes. It will create another copy of these and like run it there. Whereas in this it will not create a replica of that instance. Inside that it will just run it on another thread, basically inside your same workspace. Basically, do not create another workspace for it. That is the difference between these two. Richie, I forget the basics about thread. Just a question. Parallel processing to a single function with threads are allowed. Like on a single function, we are doing parallel processing with the threads. Is it allowed? In parallel processing, the elements are split into the different VM. There are more than one JVM to execute the processes. And in thread there is only one JVM, but we are splitting the process according to the threads. Essentially for each process, by default, each process execution has one JVM. By default, once you enable this flow control, it then splits up multiple JVMs or inside that same JVM, it will run on multiple threads. Let's add some more info to help understand it better. Suppose you have 5,000 documents. Talk dot. Five threads inside your JVM and 4 JVMs are available. Now each JVM will roughly get 2 to 50 documents. I just move this aside and say another 250. This is how it will work. If you just ignore this for now, this is how it is going to work. Essentially, it's splitting up your documents into 4 JVMs. And again, you had 5 threads. It divided by like 1000. And again, those thousands, they got split into 250 into AJVM. Like this, it will run 5 times. Did it make sense? Yes. Now inside your threaded execution for the threads, it will mark it as 1000, 1000 and 1000. Inside the same JVMem1, it will say thread 1. This will become your thread 2. This will become your thread 3. Thread 4. Add another one. This is a little. This is a little. In your cloud, majorly what runs is threading, where it will, inside the same JVM, it is going to split it into 5 threads and execute them in parallel. You have your process where you are receiving data from source. You split the documents. They will split up here. You will have, say, suppose 5,000. Suppose you have, say, 5,000 records after split. Now, when you come to your flow control shape, you choose the number of threads you want to split it into, say 5. Based on what we can choose our threads. There is an allocated quota for all of this. Using that information, this is a test account. Otherwise, in your main organizational account, you will have all these details about how many threads are available and all that kind of stuff. But based on our document size, we can select this. That way, if you are looking, yes, you perform this based on the volume of documents you're getting, time your integration is generally consuming, and the size of the documents. You'll have to do trial and error. You won't get it in the first time itself. First, you get like 2 threads. See how much the time is reducing. Increase it to 5. Increase it to like 10 threads. See how much time it is decreasing. That way you adapt to it. If a document size suggests of 5 threads, for the time saving, can we just increase our thread size? That is not allowed. What if suggestion is 5 threads for a specific document, but I'm taking more than that? No, it is for your process. One particular process, not for all of your integrations. No, for one process only. What is your question? You said that we use threads based on the recommendations on the like. You showed that we have recommendations like how much that we can choose. There is no recommendation for it. It's like you will get this with experience only. Like you know how much memory you want to allocate. If you over allocate the number of resources to just one process, your other process will start failing. You'll have to bring into consideration that as well. And how frequently this integration is going to run on schedule. Oh, she thinks understand. Save this integration. It is expected to run every few hours. Then, but your integration, it is supposed to run. Say every like, you know how many of 24 every 6 hours. By default, it is taking good 7, 8 hours. If you just do it on 2 threads, it will have a problem throwing you the error that integration is already executing. It cannot start another integration gun. You will add now few more threads to it. You added 4 or 5 threads. Time got reduced to 3 hours. But this is your just one process. Similarly, there are other 100 processes running in your organization in Booming account. Some other developers have developed. They are also using all this. If you over allocate, it will throw error that the resources are located. It has exceeded the capacity. The process will break. All of you all will have to work in consideration, together to see how much resource you can look at. And if they're also enabling this flow control, they will also have to adjust. That's what there is, like a lot of playing around with it. That needs to happen. Once that is done, you got 5,000 documents. You said split upon 5 threads and you say when is batches of 1,000 documents. Now, from this point onwards, it will run this 5 times, basically in 5 different threads. In parallel, did it make sense? This part. That is how this works. Basically, you can disable batching. You can run each document individually as well. Then it will go up to the limit of these fighters. You're like, quickly it will do that, but we usually go with batching. How do we decide the batch size? Is it also the trial and run thing? You try to reach to the maximum possible size for the batch. Thank you. There. Another fun picture will come into play where target server has this limitation. It does not allow more than upload of 1,000 documents or 500 documents at once, but you are sending a batch of 5, 10,000 documents, but it has a limitation of 1,000 only. There again, you'll have to bring another flow control or put it into a batches of 1,000 again. Then you push it just to the target connector. Richie, I have a question. I can please move to the flow control. That's a document individually. Like, how's it possible that without batch we can run individual? All your 5,000 documents will run individually on 5 threads at a time. 5 documents will be running in parallel. Once those 5 are in, next 5 will start. Then next 5 will start like that, like it will be not an every year and it's like a solution. But because of a small documents, but which are big in size, say you're only receiving 5 or 10 documents, 5 or 10 files only from your SFTP server. But the data in that is very big, the transformation logics and everything. It will take a lot of logics are there just to process even one file. It takes 10 minutes or 5 minutes and you're receiving only 5 files. If you let it one by one, it will take 25-30 minutes. If you enable parallel processing, it will just come down to 5 minutes and the whole 5 documents will run at once in parallel. This works that way. Rishi, I have a question. You said that this is also useful when the target system, let's say, accept only 1,000 documents at a time. But if it is running in parallel, then it will send all the 1,000 documents. 8,000 documents at a time. Not sequentially, but parallelly, if it is running in parallel, isn't it? Yes, what it will do is it will open up another connection. Connection will be different for every 1,000. It will open up another session for it. Otherwise, then there is this option. Once all this has happened, bring it out into your main process using written documents. There you set up the connector that your flow control. All this transformation happens inside the sub process, not on your main process. In your main process, you will have your 5,000 documents back at once received after that parallel processing. There you can set up your flow control to just send you 1,000 documents, one like that, or find your documents. Then it will not spin up if there is a restriction on how many concurrent connections are allowed or enabled. You are saying we will have our flow control in a sub-process and we will return those documents to our main process. All of that. How will we control those 5,000, those things that is running in parallel? It will return all the batch of 1,000 document at the same time. It will return all 5,000 at the same time. Then how? How will we be splitting those in our main process? You will add another flow control where you will say run as batches of 100, 500, whatever is allowed. That is, when your target system does not allow concurrent connections. Basically, you cannot connect to it 5 times at the same time. But usually, all applications majorly are flexible about it. They allow you to connect to it. Multiple times at once 5, 10 concurrent connections, those are allowed. Let's see if this has. If you are seeing this, maximum active connections. From here, you can control that information. Based on this, the number of connection allowed, we can. Or is there another shape or a way that we can split them and send them sequentially instead of parallel? You want to send them sequentially. Instead of using full control, can we send them sequentially? You can do that. In sequence, how it will adjust the size of the file. That will not be adjusted by size. File size will never be adjusted. It will all be whatever data that is coming in your transforming. It will always be that. If you just want it to run sequentially, you don't need to do anything. Just connect it to your target server once it is out in main process. If I show you here, And suppose, just assume inside the sub-process, your parallel processing flow control, all the business transformation logics happened. Outside, you receive 5,000 documents. They are not going to be thrown all at once. That's what I was confirming, that all the 5,000 document will not be sent together. They will go sequentially. Thank you. They are going at once. Then you use flow control to limit how the number of documents that are going, if that occurs. In that case, I have to maintain the concurrent connections as well. If you look at the SIP connector, by default it is 10. Basically, maximum number of active connections to SAP is 10. Then you don't need to handle this sequential sending in everything inside this. Supposedly you can open up 5 connections here. Only like just it will like virtually connect 5 times basically. That is how this works. Thank you. Now again for the threaded execution. Maximum number of threads you can take up is 10. Not more than 10 are allowed to utilize. If you go here, I said, it will show us 12, but only 10 is the maximum limit that is allowed by Boomi for the cloud. I see what is the reason behind this limit. If you use more than that, other processes will get disturbed. It will throw error, basically that. There is an error of like resources are not available. It exceeded capacity. As to not disturb it, and there are high chances of this human error and oversight where you overutilize. For this, we can reduce our batch size also. That doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with batching easily because you are utilizing the CPU's hardware that much. Even if you like increase the batch or reduce the batch, you are still using the same number of resources for it. Even if it will complete quickly, you still have blocked those many resources, basically, which can hinder for other process executions. For this one, Boomi, as per thread size, it will allocate the resources. Say something like can no, this will get more confusing. It's about local item and molecules. That's fine for now. We can just focus on this one. You can always simply take a look at this. Again, another thing, if you want to again increase all that, then the Boomi says just spin up your local or use a private item cloud where you can buy more resources and then play around however you like. But if you're going to use the cloud option, public cloud, it's limited to 10 basically. If you have, records coming in like 1 lakhs or thousands, and what do you say? There are a lot of transformation logics that you have written for in your project. If your business use cases like that, then yes, majorly you will end up using flow control if they say performance time is very high and everything. Now I just show you how it behaves. You see, is there an option where we can see the optimization or the performance of our individual that we can know that how they are being utilized for a running process? Or is there, or we can only increase or decrease their number for hidden trial. You can only see it for your process level, not at the server level, not at Adam's level. I because there is no dashboard kind of thing where we can see their performance, like how they are being utilized. Not on this, only for your local. You can configure that separately, but nothing for the public cloud. If you look at this process state, this one I executed without any flow control. It started here. We got a file split happened. Process got executed. It took 4.373 seconds. Since there were only 6 documents, there will not be much difference that you will be seeing. All this happened line by line in sequence. Now for this one, I put up flow control. It took 4.26 seconds. It reduced it by like what? 0.10 or something like that. 10, 11 seconds. Had it been again, based on the if there are more documents and everything, the size we would have seen a significant difference. But since there wasn't much, just for test case and showcase purpose, this is done. Now I was showing you, I had set it up at like split it into 2. This is how we did. Flow control. It spawned executions, thread 1 on 2 threads. I enabled it. Thread 0, thread 1e. It executed since we had 6 documents on 2 threads. We split it. It took it into 3 documents on each thread. If I bring it here, this is what we had configured when we deployed it. low throw. Two threads run as batches of two documents. It came to first thread. It saw it has three documents. And then in the first set, it ran the two documents as I had set up for two, in for the next three. And then for the next one. Out of the two, it only found one, like one is available. It executed that one document. Similarly, in parallel, another thread was spin up and similar action happened. Always remember this also. Suppose you are getting what? 5,000. 10 documents. On 5 threads, it will execute on 5 threads in parallel. Once the thread has finished execution, it will pick up the remaining 10 documents. Let's just say 6,000. 6,000. Once this is first, 5,000 are executed on 5 threads, it will come down to the next thread, one back at it. It will again take the remaining 1,000 and the 10 here. That is how it will function. Does it make sense? That is how this works. Threaded execution. That is about flow control. It will be like a lotto, hit and trial. And once you know scheduled process are running and you're also scheduling this integration at the same time around other scheduled integrations, you'll have to observe behavior then as well. And because it might hinder other process flow if you allocate too many resources. And you also have to integrate the process. Ensure you don't under allocate. It will take some time. For always, it will always be the case. Even if you know you get experience with everything, it will always be a hit and trial thing to figure out the best number of threads and batch distribution without causing disturbances to other process executions. What do you all know about authentications or JBuT API key certificates? Certificate-based authentication, all these kind of things. I know about the BUT and authentication. I know about all. The certificate is bit, authentication and key also. Oath, I also know about. I know about that JBuT token-based, web token-based authentication. Then I'll not explain in direct about like configuring in Boomi. In general, I'll explain. Because if you look from Boomi perspective also, it's same basically. Where let me open some other connector. I think SAP hazard. There will be some connectors. We can use this one. Why are we bothering with this? Attitude. Where you have auth to point you. You can configure this based on your grant type. Again, client credentials. You can configure your client ID. I opened up this one. A sample on Pro server. If I pick up this, I can take, will again be receiving all this information from your application name. What we can do is, this will be your regular access token URL will go. Let's face the client ID would go here. Once you have the details, if you have scope, it would go there. Your URL would be this. Let's see if something. Just assume there is a client secret as well. You will configure it something like this and give your application URL here. This is all you'll be able to connect for the OAuth. I'll just explain the general flow. You would request the request. Build up will happen behind the scenes. Where again you will be configuring all the details. It gets authorized. Once it is true. Basically this is your request. Essentially, this is how you would build it. This and this is your client secret. And the client ID remains same. Once your request is hit to the security server, authentication server, you will get your token using this token. It would hit your URL connection basically and fetch the data, open up your connection. That's how in general it works. About your auth authentication. Now about JSON Web Tokens. Let If you can decode your token, it would have the "just give me a moment." That is how the token works. It will have you know your basic information about who is the issuer, username, expiry issued at, all these kind of details basically. And that is how in general about this one works. Again, it comes under oath, only your JBOT token. Majorly, we use JBOT token these days. Not much information to share for now. Just like I just showed you how you will be configuring it if you have that information. There is another type of authentication that Boomi supports is certificate-based authentication. Majorly we use X509 certificate, where you give all these kind of details. You know, your certificate is generated. You will save it. You will export your private key and public certificate. Share the public certificate with the client, the target system, and keep your and configure your private key in your Atom. That once the request is hit, when they share the public certificate against the private, it will get validated. And Boomi has all the generic CA certificates. A very rare chance you need to worry about that. Once you have a certificate, once it's deployed, it will be visible here. And you know if you are exposing your we don't have it in the trial account. Otherwise, you will have option of selecting the certificate based authentication, basically like that. This is how, but you otherwise generate your certificate. Similarly, you can also generate the GP certificate. Concept is same, you export, and you export both public and private, share the public one. and deploy private to your atom. Basically, with your process, it will get deployed and it will get authenticated against your private key whenever the request is hit. That is how it functions in general. You never share the private key with your application teams. You only share your public the Otherwise, sometimes your source team. They have only certificate-based authentication. When you are requesting foreign data, trying to fetch, they say we have certificate-based authentication. In such case, they will only be sharing their public certificate. They will not be sharing the private key with you. When you hit the request to their source server for data, it will take your public certificate authenticate. The fingerprints, again, private key, and the CS certificate basically. And then once it's validated, it will give you back the data in response. That is how it works. Did you get some basic understanding about it? It's a shame. This is your private key basically. Once you have it imported. That is how authentication works. We will not be able to use certificate-based authentication. I'll see if we can have. Mostly it won't be possible. That's why I'm just giving you a brief understanding about what needs to be shared and what should not be shared. Please do share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.